Doctor Who Season 2 will be coming this April, but what do we actually know about it so far? Okay, so like I just said, Doctor Who Season 2 will be coming next month in April, and this video is going to be compiling all the information I've talked about Doctor Who Season 2 so far, with me occasionally interjecting to give some updates and corrections on certain aspects of Doctor Who Season 2 that I've discussed in the past. So without further ado, let's start with the Season 2 teaser trailer that we got at the end of Joy to the World.
There are forces beyond this universe, so look into them.
So we start with a brief shot of the Doctor in the TARDIS where things seem to be going a little bit weird. Now this could be just for one episode in particular, but I'm thinking it's the possibility, or I at least hope, that this is going to be some sort of running through line for the season as a whole, with the TARDIS kind of not working properly. And based on something that Belinda Chandra, Virada Sethu's character, says later on in the trailer, it seems like maybe she doesn't want to be there and that the Doctor's just struggling to return her home because of whatever's going wrong with the TARDIS, which we see in this opening shot. It now seems that from an official synopsis and from the new full-length trailer that we've got, that this is going to be a running through line throughout the whole season. It's basically going to be the overarching plot for the whole of Doctor Who Season 2 and not just for one episode, which I'm very happy about. So the synopsis for Doctor Who Season 2 that we've got from Disney Plus reads: the Doctor meets Belinda Chandra and begins an epic quest to get her back to Earth, but a mysterious force is stopping their return and the time-travelling TARDIS team must face great dangers, bigger enemies and wider terrors than ever before. And over this, the Doctor says, there are forces beyond this universe, it's all a game to them, which to me suggests it could be referring to another member of the pantheon of gods. Obviously there's been speculation that Mrs. Flood could be a part of this pantheon. We also have a cartoon character that comes in later in this trailer that could also be part of the pantheon of gods as well, so I feel like that's probably what this is referring to, and I assume it's building to possibly another member of the pantheon being kind of the big bad in the finale of this season. So this is one of the most talked about shots of this teaser trailer. As to a lot of people, this looks like it could be Skaro, and those ships flying around do look very similar to the Dalek ships. I don't know how likely it is that the Daleks will return in this season, so this could just be some other alien planet, and these ships just could be some generic alien spaceship. But it does look very similar to Skaro, at least maybe a redesign of Skaro for the new era, and the ships do look very similar to Dalek saucers, even if this planet maybe isn't Skaro. I'm now fairly certain from the new full-length trailer we've got for Doctor Who Season 2 that this planet probably isn't Skaro or Gallifrey and is likely a brand new planet, which I'll get more into later on in this video when we get to the full-length trailer. We then get a shot of Belinda Chandra, played by Virada Sethu. This is going to be the new companion for Doctor Who Season 2. We are obviously going to get the return of Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday as well at some point in the season, but I believe she's more going to be playing a role similar to Martha Jones in Series 4, where she kind of shows up for an episode or two in the middle of the season and then maybe returns with Unit again in the finale, which I'll talk about later on in this trailer. But obviously this is the new companion, Belinda Chandra. We do know from Doctor Who Unleashed that she does seem to be similar to Martha Jones as well, in that she seems to be working at a hospital, which at first I thought was the Royal Hope Hospital again, because I thought I could see the logo for that in the brief tease we got in Doctor Who Unleashed, but I think it is actually a different logo and a different hospital than Royal Hope, which we also saw at the end of Joy to the World. So I believe this shot could be from inside the hospital, but it could also be from inside maybe her house or something like that, her flat. But I'm assuming this is possibly from episode 1, which seems to be the episode with these robots in it as well, which I'll talk about later on. But from what we can tell, episode 1 seems to be meeting Belinda, and also there's going to be these robots in it. So here we get another shot of Mrs. Flood, who's obviously been a recurring character throughout this new era. This looks like it's likely going to be from what we think is episode 2 of the season. We've now since got another look at Mrs. Flood in this same location from the new full-length trailer, which does suggest that this is actually going to be from the Eurovision episode, episode 6, which we now know is called the Interstellar Song Contest. As you can actually tell that she's sat in the same place and that person next to her is an alien, which I'll talk about later on in this video. But we do know that Mrs. Flood is going to be showing up in episode 2 from set filming and stuff like that, but this shot seems to be from episode 6 instead.
Doctor, you need to get me home.
This might be the long way round.
So these are the robots that I was talking about earlier, once again with Belinda in it, which we believe is going to be the opening episode of the season. It seems like they seem to be in some sort of garden in this shot, so this could be Belinda Chandra's garden, and maybe that shot before of Belinda was her looking out of her window into her garden or something like that. We then see a shot of what I believe is the Doctor and Belinda Chandra falling from some sort of spaceship, followed by a shot of what seems to be at a similar point in possibly the same episode. In this shot, I did think they were also just falling in space, but if you look at the top of the shot, shot, you can actually see that they do seem to be underwater in this particular shot. So there seems to be maybe some sort of underwater base that they're trying to get to. Potentially it could be something about the Sea Devils, because obviously they're going to be appearing in the spin-off, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be related to this. So here we have another shot of the TARDIS acting up, this time with the Doctor and Belinda in it, with Belinda Chandra saying, "Doctor, you need to get me home," which this kind of also backs up what I was saying earlier on at the start of this trailer, where there seems to be some sort of through line throughout this series where the TARDIS isn't working properly, is maybe being controlled by some sort of external force, and Belinda just wants the Doctor to get her home, which I'm hoping is going to be kind of a running theme throughout the whole season, because obviously last season we had Ruby Sunday, who willingly joined the Doctor in his adventures and was actually happy to be there, and there was kind of no conflicts between them. Whereas if this is what I think it's going to be, where Belinda doesn't really want to be there, but she can't get home, or the Doctor can't get her home throughout the whole season, it means there's going to be a bit more conflicts between the Doctor and companion in this season, which I'm excited for if that does turn out to be the case. Although this could just be for one episode for all we know, but I believe this is going to be possibly a through line throughout the season, and I do hope it is. But let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. And this is backed up even more by the Doctor saying this might be the long way round.
But the games are deadly.
Here we see a shot of Ruby Sunday in unit, so I'm assuming this is probably going to be for the finale, but it could be for the one episode or two episodes that we get in the middle of the season where Ruby is meant to be returning for a bit. But like I said earlier, I think she's going to return for a story or two in the middle of the season, and then she's going to be part of unit in the finale, but we'll see about that. We also obviously see Kate Stewart behind her, which isn't a surprise when we're in unit, and we also see Shirley-Ann Bingham in the background as well, which is nice because she was originally meant to be in season 1 as far as I know, but Ruth Madeley had some sort of conflict, I think, at the time. She was filming something else or something like that, I think, and so that's why we ended up having Lenny Rush as Morris instead. But it's nice to see her returning from the 60th anniversary specials, because I think she was a really good character as part of the unit team. But maybe we'll also get Morris as well, but I assume she's just kind of coming back and we're going to have her instead of Morris for a bit, and maybe they'll kind of switch season to season which one is being used, depending on like the actor's availability and stuff like that. And carrying on with the quote that we had from the start of the trailer, the Doctor is saying, "But the games are deadly," which to me suggests once again something from the Pantheon of Gods. It does almost sound kind of toy makery, but I don't think we're going to get a toy maker return in this season, especially with him being played last by Neil Patrick Harris. It's very unlikely that he's going to be available for an actual season of Doctor Who. To me, the 60th anniversary specials seem more like a one-off for him, but I suppose they did have him stored away in unit, so it's definitely possible that we could get a toy maker return, but I personally don't see that happening. I think it's going to be someone else from the Pantheon of Gods. Here we get a look at the cartoon character, which I mentioned before. So this story, from what we can tell from like filming and stuff, seems to take place in the 50s. You can also tell from the way people are dressed and stuff like that, and I believe it's taking place in Miami, or at least somewhere in America. But I don't want to get too deep into that without getting into a little bit more of kind of spoiler territory from what we've seen on set. But this cartoon character does look like it's going to be a very interesting villain. I don't know whether it's going to be the main villain of the episode, or if the villain's going to be able to control all of these cartoon characters and film characters and stuff like that and bring them to life. But it's a very unique concept and very cool concept, which I believe is going to be part of episode 2, and so I'm very excited to see what that's going to be. Once again, I think this has something to do with the Pantheon of Gods, but it could be something else, but I can imagine this being a Pantheon of Gods type situation. We also get this, what seems to be some sort of diner or cafe or something like that seems to be floating through kind of space or something like that. We now know this seems to be from episode 5, which is a Newer Elms episode, and this building that they're in seems to be some sort of barbershop that appears to be on the back of this large spider-like creature that we can see in the full trailer, in some sort of void or something like that with a load of webs around it, which I'll get into more depth in when we get to the full-length trailer. We see a shot of the TARDIS flying, and then we see a shot of these robots that we think once again are going to be from episode 1 moving the TARDIS in some sort of spaceship by the looks of things, or maybe it's the inside of a building from that city that we see that looks very similar to Skaro from the start of the trailer, which could lend more credence to the idea that this isn't Skaro and it isn't a Dalek's return. It could just be the robot's home planet or something like that. We see another shot of Belinda Chandra with some sort of kind of bright light and energy or something coming towards her face. I'm not 100% sure what this could be about. We see the Doctor flying through this big open space, possibly on some sort of spaceship or in space or something like that, which I think could be related to where we see that kind of built-in diner kind of cafe area floating through as well. This could be from that episode, but from the new full-length trailer that we've got, it appears to be from the Eurovision Interstellar Song Contest episode instead, judging by his outfit and some of the other shots that we get for that episode in the new trailer. Okay, so that was my breakdown of the teaser trailer for Doctor Who Season 2. Now we'll be moving on to the new writers for Doctor Who Season 2. So these are all 4 of the writers for Doctor Who Season 2 that are going to be writing alongside Russell T Davies. We've got Juno Dawson, Inua Ellams, Pete McTeague, and Sharma Angel Warfall, and of course we've got Russell T Davies as well. And apologies if I pronounce any of the names wrong throughout this video. I'm not 100% sure how they're all pronounced, but I think I probably got them mostly right as far as I can tell. So the article begins with a quote from Russell T Davies himself, who says, "Doctor Who takes its talent from a glittering galaxy of names, and these extraordinary writers span the skies. We've got old hands, new stars, voices from theatre, radio, and literature, the whole works. It's the most wild and exciting season of Doctor Who yet, and I can't wait to unleash their brilliant work." So as he alludes to in this quote from Russell, some of these writers have written for Doctor Who before, whether that be the show itself or some expanded media, which we'll get to. I believe some of them have written for other TV shows, and one of them in particular is known for like poetry and theatre and stuff like that. So we've got quite an interesting range of writers for this season, which is really exciting. And even just the fact that we've got new writers at all is a really exciting thing, because I think a lot of people's main issue with this era so far is we've not really had much new besides obviously the writing duo for Rogue in season 1, because besides that it was just Russell and Moffat who have written many episodes of Doctor Who in the past. And while I wasn't completely blown away with Rogue, with it being kind of the most kind of standard episode of Doctor Who we got last season in a season of pretty experimental episodes, it was at least still nice to have some new writers involved. And now we've got 4 new writers involved for this season. One of them has written a couple of episodes of Doctor Who before, and one of them is somewhat familiar with the Doctor Who universe, has been part of the Doctor Who universe for a little while now as well. But it's just nice that at least half of this season is going to be written by new writers and not Russell T Davies, who's only going to be writing half of the season. So the first writer that is mentioned in this official press release for the writers of Doctor Who Season 2 is Juno Dawson. This is the one that we didn't know about beforehand. I think all the other 3 writers had been previously rumoured and speculated to be writing episodes for this season. But Juno Dawson isn't new to the Doctor Who kind of zeitgeist. Like, a lot of people know who she is because she has been involved with Doctor Who in the past, just not the show itself. In the Doctor Who world, she's mostly known for creating Doctor Who Redacted, which was a scripted podcast series, which I personally haven't listened to yet, but I heard good things about it. And she was also a host on the official Doctor Who podcast for like its first season or first few episodes. I think that was during the 60th anniversary specials, if I remember correctly. But as it mentions here, Juno Dawson is a #1 Sunday Times bestseller novelist, screenwriter, and journalist whose books include the global bestsellers This Book is Gay and Her Majesty's Royal Coven. And as I mentioned, Dawson created the first official Doctor Who scripted podcast, Doctor Who Redacted. So I personally haven't actually read or watched or listened to anything that Juno Dawson has created. I did see her briefly when she was a host on the official Doctor Who podcast, but I know my girlfriend has read one of her books, which I think she thought was good from what I remember. And as it says here, she is a #1 Sunday Times best-selling novelist, so she's clearly very talented, and as we know from her involvement in Doctor Who in the past, she's very familiar with the show, and so that's a good sign. And we have a quote from Juno Dawson here saying, "I started watching Doctor Who with my grandma when I was 10 years old in the 90s. From writing fan fictions for an audience of 1 to scripting the best TV show of all time is truly a dream come true. I can't wait for fans and newcomers to see the new season." Okay, so now we get on to the next writer for Doctor Who Season 2. This is one of the ones that had been previously speculated in the past month or so, I believe, and this is Inua Ellams. Apologies if I've got that name wrong, but that sounds like how you'd pronounce it as far as I know, and I've not heard it pronounced anywhere else, so hopefully I'm getting that right. So Inua Ellams is a writer and curator whose published books of poetry include Candy Coated Unicorns and Converse All-Stars and The Actual. His first play, The 14th Tale, was awarded a fringe first at the Edinburgh International Theatre Festival, and other plays include Barbershop Chronicles, which played at the National Theatre, Three Sisters, and The Half-God of Rainfall. Inua says, "For as long as I can remember television, I've been a Doctor Who fan. I started watching when I was 10 in Nigeria. The show invited me to dream, to live beyond my reality. Getting to write for the show felt like touching God. It was blasphemously humbling and exciting, and I can't wait to share my story with the world." So although he's not written for Doctor Who in the past, he's clearly a fan of the show and understands the show, as he's been watching it since he was 10 years old. And as far as I can see here, although I might be wrong, I don't think he's written for television before, which will be really interesting. It might mean this episode has a very interesting and maybe experimental kind of flavour to it, but I could be wrong. Maybe he's written for television before and I've just missed that, or it's not mentioned here, because I'm not personally familiar with this writer. But it's going to be very exciting to see see from a new writer who's not been involved in Doctor Who before, like Juno Dawson had. And I think it's going to be in safe hands as well for this episode, because like I said, he is a Doctor Who fan and he's been watching since he was 10. So that's going to be very exciting. Next, we've got Pete McTeague, who is going to be a familiar name for a lot of people with Doctor Who. He's already previously written episodes for Doctor Who with Kablam and Praxius from the 13th Doctor era, the Chris Chibnall era, which for me personally aren't episodes that I'm the biggest fan of. You know, Kablam, I think, from what I remember, it was a decent story to begin with, but the very ending really lets it down with a really terrible message. And Praxius, I honestly just don't remember too much about it, so it can't have been all that interesting to me or all that great, but I'd be interested to see what he's like writing under a different showrunner. And we also know he's a writer and executive producer on The War Between the Land and the Sea, which is mentioned here as well. He's also created or execed dramas including The Pact, The Rising, A Discovery of Witches, and Wentforth. Out of all those, I think I've heard of A Discovery of Witches, and I think I've heard good things about it, but I'm not 100% sure. I've just definitely heard the name of that one before. And we have a quote from Pete McTeague here saying, "The TARDIS is my home away from home, so it's been a joy to step back inside, with Russell at the console and the incredible team at Bad Wolf hanging on for dear life. I love this show with all my heart, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to achieve with my next episode." Oh, and another thing I forgot to mention, I believe Pete McTeague is also responsible for a lot of the collection box set trailers and stuff like that, and I think he wrote some of the opening and closing parts of Tales of the TARDIS as well, as far as I remember. So he's definitely been involved with Doctor Who in the past, besides those 2 episodes from the Chibnall era, and it'll be interesting to see what his episode is going to be like underneath Russell T Davies, and I do personally hope it's better than Kablam and Praxius, because like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of those episodes personally. Okay, so the final new writer for Doctor Who Season 2 is Sharma Angel Warfall, who, as it says here, originally hails from Manchester and won the inaugural Channel 4 New Writing Award that set her off on a screenwriting journey. She wrote an episode of Dreamland for Sky, which is a show I've heard of only because Freema Agyeman is in it, but I personally haven't seen it, and has been in a number of writing rooms, including Supercell, Renegade Now, A Town Called Malice, and Noughts and Crosses. And we've got a quote as well for Sharma here saying, "I'm buzzing to be part of such an iconic show. I am a massive Russell T Davies fan, so it's a dream come true to be able to work alongside him, especially on a show that I love. It's a real privilege to be a part of the Doctor Who family. I've loved every minute." And so that's it for all the brand new writers for Doctor Who Season 2. Like I said, 3 of these we kind of already had rumoured or speculated, or some people had found out about it at least from maybe CVs or something like that in the past couple of months or so. One of which is Pete McTeague, who obviously, like I said, has written for Doctor Who in the past, but the others are newcomers to the show, which is going to be really exciting, because that's, like I said, that's something that we've kind of needed recently, given that I think the main issue a lot of people, including myself, have had with this new era so far is it's a lot of the old guard still. Obviously we had the return of Russell T Davies to begin with, and then we also had Stephen Moffat coming back for 2 episodes. But like I said, it was nice to at least have Rogue with a new writing duo, but that just didn't feel like enough new talent on the show personally for me. And then the other new writer here was Juno Dawson, which is a nice surprise because she's already well known in Doctor Who and is finally getting to write an actual episode for the show itself, which is going to be really exciting. Or at least it sounds like it is. Like I said, I personally haven't listened to Doctor Who Redacted, or I think she's done some Torchwood audios on Big Finish and stuff like that, which I haven't listened to. But as far as I know, I think I've heard they're really good. So it's exciting to finally see her write for Doctor Who itself. So those are the brand new writers for Doctor Who Season 2. Let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Is this as exciting to you as it is to me that we're finally getting some new talent? Is there any particular writers you're excited for or not as excited for? Like I said, for me personally, I'm very interested to see what Pete McTeague's episode is going to be like, because although he's written for Doctor Who in the past and has experience writing for Doctor Who, I'm not the biggest fan of his 2 episodes that he's written before, but let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Okay, so those are all the new writers who are going to be writing for Doctor Who Season 2. Now we're going to move on to the officially confirmed air date and also air time of Doctor Who Season 2. So it all initially started with a newsletter from one of the upcoming writers for Doctor Who Season 2, which is Anua Ellams, where he mentioned that Doctor Who Season 2 will be airing through April and May. So that narrowed it down to the first 3 Saturdays of April, as that would mean it starts in April and finishes in May, and doesn't run off into June. We then also had speculation that Episode 6, which is allegedly going to be Juno Dawson's episode, was going to tie in with this year's Eurovision final, which would mean that Doctor Who Season 2 would need to start airing on April 12th or April 19th, depending on whether or not we get a double bill premiere like we did with Season 1. But then we got this previously mentioned updated version of the teaser trailer during that rugby coverage on BBC iPlayer, which I'm going to play now.
There are forces beyond this universe. So look into them.
Doctor, you need to get me home.
This might be the long way round.
But the games are deadly.
What the hell is this?
Now, obviously, pretty much none of the footage in this teaser trailer is any different to what we've seen before. It's basically the exact same teaser trailer that we got at the end of Joy to the World. However, we get a different logo at the end of this teaser trailer, and we also get a little message at the end of this teaser trailer that says Saturday, April 12th as the release date for Doctor Who Season 2. Like I said, I think this was maybe done accidentally, as I assume we were probably going to get this officially announced with a full trailer for Doctor Who Season 2, not just an updated version of the already existing teaser trailer. So hopefully we'll get that very soon, probably to coincide with the 20-year anniversary of the revival of Doctor Who. Obviously, we have now since had the full-length trailer for Doctor Who Season 2, which was released on the 2nd of March, which I'll be discussing later on in this video, which is next month. But until then, we do now already know that Doctor Who Season 2 will start airing on April 12th, but that's not the only indication that this gives us about Doctor Who Season 2 and its release strategy. As like I said, we do think Episode 6, which is allegedly going to be Juno Dawson's episode, will allegedly tie in with this year's Eurovision final, and for that to happen, we initially thought that it would need to air on April 19th if it was a double bill premiere like last year, or April 12th if it isn't a double bill premiere like last year. So the confirmation now that Doctor Who Season 2 will start airing on April 12th does suggest that we aren't going to get a double premiere like last year, and so we are going to have 8 weeks of Doctor Who with one episode every week instead of a double bill premiere like we had for Season 1, which I think is personally positive, because although I think it was exciting to get 2 episodes at once, I do personally prefer it if we have 8 weeks of Doctor Who instead of 7 and we have 1 episode per week. So I think that's what this is going to suggest, if that rumour is true about Episode 6 tying in with the Eurovision final, which I think it probably is. Okay, so that's the official air date of Doctor Who Season 2, but now we're moving on to the official air time, when it will be released on BBC iPlayer and Disney+. So the official announcement came on the Doctor Who social media channels with 2 posters, one of the 15th Doctor and one of Belinda Chandra, the new companion, with the date April 12th listed on both of these posters. But we also got an official press release for a new actor who's going to be appearing in the show, playing that cartoon character that we'd seen throughout the trailers, or the teaser trailer I should say, that we got at the end of Joy to the World. And it's actually in this press release for this new casting where we get the official time when Doctor Who Season 2 will be airing. So I'm going to be talking about this new character first so that I can read that press release and then talk about the official air time. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this press release reads, Alan Cumming joins the Season 2 cast of Doctor Who. Get ready to meet Mr. Ring-a-Ding when Doctor Who returns on April 12th. So obviously, we'd seen this character in the previous teaser trailer that we've had for Doctor Who Season 2, and Russell T Davies previously hinted that an actor that had previously been in Doctor Who would be returning to voice this character, with a lot of people at the time speculating that it could be someone like Simon Pegg or Nick Briggs, but we now have official confirmation that it is Alan Cumming, who had previously played King James I in Series 11's The Witchfinders. So this press release reads, the cast of Doctor Who Season 2 continues to grow as Emmy Award winner Alan Cumming is set to guest star in its 2nd episode. So there's also confirmation that this is definitely going to be episode 2, which had been previously speculated. It goes on to say, previously appearing in the Whoniverse as King James I in Series 11 adventure The Witchfinders, Cumming lends his voice in Season 2 to Mr. Ring-a-Ding, a happy, funny, sing-along cartoon who lives in Sunnytown with his friend Sunshine Sally. However, in 1952, after years of repeats in cinemas across the land, Mr. Ring-a-Ding suddenly looks beyond the screen and sees the real world outside, and the consequences are terrifying. Russell T Davies, showrunner, said, only Alan Cumming could give a runaway cartoon so much wit, malice, danger, and fun. He makes the whole universe of Doctor Who wilder and madder than ever, and it's an absolute honour to welcome him on board the TARDIS. Season 2 will officially launch on Saturday, 12th of April at 8 AM on BBC iPlayer, and later that day on BBC One in the UK. At the same time, those outside of the UK can watch the Doctor and Belinda on their epic adventures on Disney Plus where available. The season stars Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, Varada Sethu as Belinda Chandra, and Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. Also adventuring through time and space this season are Rose Ayling-Ellis, Anita Dobson, Christopher Chung, Michelle Greenidge, Jonah Howard-King, Ruth Madley, Gemma Redgrave, and Susan Twist. So obviously this article is mostly about Alan Cumming returning to voice the new character Mr. Ring-a-Ding in episode 2, but obviously at the end of this article here it does state that Doctor Who Season 2 will officially launch April 12th at 8 AM on BBC iPlayer. This is as opposed to the midnight releases that we got last year, which I was personally expecting us to get again this year, but we are instead getting Doctor Who Season 2, or the episodes of that season are going to be broadcasting or airing on BBC iPlayer at least at 8 AM, and they will be rebroadcast as well on BBC One later that day. So when I heard this news, I did think personally it would be an improvement on the midnight releases, and I thought most people would actually agree with that, as a lot of people, including myself, had issues with the midnight releases last year for Doctor Who Season 1. But I think a lot of people still aren't really happy with this 8 AM release on BBC iPlayer. For me personally, it's not great because I do work at 9 AM on Saturday mornings, and so it's just not really going to leave enough time for me to watch the episode before it goes out. And I was personally expecting it to be midnight releases again, so my plan was going to be to wake up early before work and watch the episodes and potentially film a first impressions video before I go to work. But this isn't even going to leave me personally enough time to really watch the episodes, unless I'm kind of watching it on my phone, partially at home and partially on the way to work, which I don't know if I'm going to do or not, but it's definitely not going to leave me enough time to record a quick first impressions video before I go to work. So for me personally, it's not really that great, but I did think most people would actually be happy with this change as opposed to the midnight releases we got last year. Okay, so that's when Doctor Who Season 2 will officially be airing on BBC iPlayer and BBC One, as well as Disney Plus and so on. Now we're finally going to move on to the full-length official trailer for Doctor Who Season 2.
There are forces beyond this universe. We think we are so clever. But we're like children.
So we start with an opening shot of some shots that we've seen before of Belinda Chandra waking up in what seems to be her bedroom at home and looking out the window, where we seem to see this spaceship, which is a very classic looking sci-fi spaceship. Now when I first saw this trailer, I did think it seems like the spaceship might be kind of taking her away, and if we see the Disney Plus version of the trailer, we actually see the robots breaking into her house in some very similar imagery, at least for me, of the Star Beast when the Wrath Warriors are breaking into Donna's house or the Noble's house. So it does seem like these robots are, for whatever reason, going to kidnap Belinda Chandra, and I believe in the last trailer we also see them kind of teleporting her from a garden, so I'm assuming they're going to teleport her into their ship and then take her away for whatever reason. We then see from what seems to be from the same episode what I think is the inside of one of the buildings in that city that we saw in the previous trailer that some people thought might have looked like Skaro or Gallifrey. It now seems like that's definitely not going to be the case. It's going to be wherever either these robots are from or these people that are in this building are from. We then see the inside of what looks like some sort of spaceship, or maybe it's another building on some other planet, with people in these black suits putting on their helmets. One of these people, I believe, is Christopher Chung, who's been announced to be in the season and appears to be in this episode. And from what we can tell, this seems to be episode 3, which we believe is Sharma Angel Warfall's episode. And it seems to be the same episode where we see them falling from the sky and going into the ocean, or what seems to be some sort of ocean, which we saw in the last trailer and I believe is also at some point in this trailer.
When these vast creatures look down on us, our entire reality is in danger.
So what's your name?
Just the doctor?
All right then. I'm called the nurse.
We then see this big spider creature which seems to be surrounded by webs, either in space or in some sort of kind of void area. I'm going to get more into this later when we get a better look of this creature later on in the trailer. But interestingly, it does seem to be mechanical and not kind of organic. We then see what appears to be Kate Stewart in some sort of containment unit or whatever in Unit. This is probably like in the basement of Unit. I think it's been mentioned before in like the 60th anniversary specials, or maybe it was in last season's finale, I'm not entirely sure. And there seems to be some creature at the window of one of these cells in this containment unit. I don't know if this is going to be a creature that's relevant to this particular episode, or if it's just going to be kind of a cameo of another creature. I know some people have thought it might be a sea devil, but I don't really think it looks like that personally. And I believe this is probably going to be either the finale, or I think more likely it could be episode 4, I think, which is the Ruby and potentially Unit focused episode, or at least it's definitely going to be the Ruby episode. I'm not sure whether Unit is going to be involved in that one, or if they're going to be involved with Ruby and everybody else in the finale. So it's going to be one of those episodes, I think. We then see the Doctor in this bowler hat and suit, which we've seen from filming, and I believe this is from the finale, and there definitely seemed to be some weird stuff going on when they were filming this episode. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it seemed like it was some sort of alternate reality, but I'm not 100% sure if that is the case now. But I remember the Doctor was acting a bit strange during the filming, but I'm not going to get too deep into that because I don't want to kind of spoil things or get into leak territory, and I also don't fully remember what it was all about, but we do believe this is from the finale. And they seem to be looking up at this big kind of skeletal colossal dinosaur creature. I'm not 100% sure if this is a real dinosaur or if it's more like a skeletal kind of alien. Obviously, the editing of this kind of leads us to believe that this is from the same episode and they're looking up at this, but this could be a different episode for all I know, but I believe this is also from the finale. We then see the same shot of something going on weird in the TARDIS that we got from the previous trailer. We see the return of Mel Bush, played by Bonnie Langford, as we see these kind of buildings kind of collapsing around her. It seems like something kind of reality breaking is potentially happening around her, so I'm assuming this is once again going to be something to do with the finale. We then get another moment that seems to be from episode 1 of probably not long after the Doctor and Belinda have met each other as they're introducing each other, with the Doctor saying, "I'm the Doctor," and Belinda saying, "Alright then, I'm the nurse." So this is likely in that same city from that other planet, or maybe it's inside that spaceship that she gets kidnapped from. But we can also see what the Doctor is wearing in this is very similar to what those other people are wearing that are on that planet in that building that we see earlier on and in other shots from this episode. So I'm not sure whether he's like blending in or something like that to try and figure out what's going on with these robots, because it seems like he's wearing the same clothes as everybody else and not kind of wearing his own clothes for this episode, even though obviously he does wear different outfits pretty much every episode now.
There is something already connecting us.
I'm an ordained Anglican Marine. This is a time machine.
Boom!
I am not one of your adventures. You need to get me home.
This might be the wrong way round.
You're Scooby-Doo.
Honey, I'm Velma. We are meant to voyage out there and own it.
We're just popping in.
Girl, you are beginning to enjoy this.
Welcome to the Interstellar Song Contest!
Oh, we're so staying.
We're staying.
I love a good show.
We then see what seems to be Belinda Chandra first entering the TARDIS, where we get a little hint to her character somewhat being connected to the character that Varada Sethu played last season, Mundi Flynn, in the episode Boom. Although there seems to be a lot of attention drawn to this in this trailer, I do feel like there's probably not going to be much more of this in the actual season itself. It is probably just going to be this mention, but I could be wrong. I'm hoping it isn't too big of a mystery or something like that that takes over the whole season, because I don't know how satisfyingly that's going to end, especially with the reveals that we got in the finale last season. So I am just kind of hoping it's kind of what RTD has done in the past, where he just kind of has like a line or two to kind of mention why this actor is reappearing as a different character, and I do feel like that's probably what we're going to get, hopefully. We see the TARDIS seemingly chasing the spaceship that we saw earlier on in the trailer, which I believe Belinda Chandra is probably trapped in at this moment, and we see Belinda arriving in this city with these people wearing all these same clothes that seem like what the Doctor might have been wearing in other shots in this trailer. So this is assumedly after she's just been kidnapped by these robots and brought to this planet. We see the same shot from the last trailer where Belinda Chandra says to the Doctor, "You need to get me home," and the Doctor says this might be the long way around. We now know this is going to be a running through line throughout the whole season, as the Doctor and Belinda are trying to get back to Earth and something is stopping them, which is probably going to be related to the finale. We get a nice joke from what seems to be from episode 2, as this seems to be the 50s episode with the cartoon villain, which we now know is Mr. Ring-a-Ding, where Belinda Chandra says to the Doctor, "You're Scooby-Doo," and the Doctor says, "Honey, I'm Velma," which is a funny little joke and very in character for this Doctor. We then see that same spaceship and the Doctor and Belinda on that planet that we see that's from episode 1 where the robots are on. We see the Doctor and Belinda walking through this particular location, which we believe is from episode 5, which is a Newer Elms episode. From something we get later on in this trailer, I think this is probably somewhere in Africa, particularly Western Africa. It's possibly Nigeria, as I know that's where a Newer Elms is from, but I think from something later on that we get in this particular trailer that hints at what this episode could be about, it could also be Ghana, but I'll talk about that later on in this trailer. We see the Doctor and Belinda dressed in their 50s attire for episode 2, and we see those same shots that I mentioned earlier of them seem to be going in the ocean of a particular planet, which we believe is from episode 3. Here we see a shot from what we believe is episode 6, which we now know is called the Interstellar Song Contest, where we now have confirmation that it is Rylan who is going to be appearing in this episode, which was previously speculated by some people, or I guess kind of leaked. And this makes sense because Rylan is a well-known presenter in the UK. He started off being a contestant in the X Factor, but he is now well-known as a presenter, and I believe there's some rumours out there that he could have been cryogenically frozen and is playing himself in this episode. We see the Doctor and Belinda in this same location from the same episode, who seem very excited about this particular show, so they decide they're going to stay around. And we then see Mrs. Flood in this episode as well, saying, "I love a good show," as she's sat in the audience watching on. We had previously seen a similar shot in the last trailer trailer, which I had speculated could either be this episode or episode 2, as we couldn't tell exactly where she was in that shot, and it looked like she could have been in the audience of the theatre in episode 2, but we can now tell this is the same location as the previous trailer, and it is actually from the Interstellar Song Contest, as in that last shot you can also see the same person sat next to her. But we do also know she is going to be appearing in episode 2 from set filming and stuff like that. She's been seen in that 50s Miami location.
Sold the game to them.
I'm beaming at ya.
But the games are deadly.
Tell a story.
Aren't you scared? Why? Because it likes the taste.
I promised that I would keep you safe.
You can't.
I can. I will. I do. I will take you home. That is a promise.
We see more of these army type people from episode 3, including Christopher Chung's character, as they seem to be entering some kind of abandoned kind of warehouse or factory or something like that. Obviously I know some of this episode must have something to do with being underwater, but I don't believe that this in particular looks like it's underwater. We see these kind of stone faces that are moving. I'm not entirely sure which episode this could be from. It could also be from episode 3, but there's also the possibility that it could be something to do with episode 5, as these do look kind of similar to some kind of African masks. I'm not 100% sure on what those are, or if those are definitely a thing, but I'm pretty sure that is kind of a thing in certain African cultures. But correct me if I'm wrong in the comments with that. We then see another shot of Mr. Ring-a-Ding. This time he's actually fully out of the screen, and he's clearly walking in between the Doctor and Belinda, or is at least stood in front of Belinda in this particular shot in the real world. We see the same shot of Mr. Ring-a-Ding from the last one where he's exiting the screen. We did also see from the Disney Plus variation of this trailer a look at the Doctor and Belinda being turned into cartoon characters, which is obviously going to be part of this episode as well, and that looks very fun. I don't know if that's going to be a big part of the episode or just a brief scene, but that looks very fun as well, especially the animation style of both Mr. Ring-a-Ding and the Doctor and Belinda in those shots that we've seen. We then see this missing poster, which to me seems to be from episode 5 again, which is a Newer Elms episode, which, like I said earlier, I believe is going to be set in West Africa, particularly potentially Ghana, maybe Nigeria. So there seems to be some kind of mystery about missing people in this episode. And we see one of the characters from this episode holding a barbershop kind of razor or hair trimmer. I can't really think what they're exactly called right now, which seems to suggest that that building we see kind of floating through the void in that episode is probably a barbershop, which is actually seen in this next shot. We then see this kind of eerie monster in the dark in what could maybe be some sort of graveyard, but I'm not 100% sure. This seems to be from episode 4, which is the Ruby-centric episode, which I also believe I've heard is likely going to be a Doctor and Companion Light episode. It's mostly going to be following Ruby and Jonah Hauer-King's character and maybe Unit. And speaking of Jonah Hauer-King, we also get a shot of him in this trailer as well, with a hand coming up behind his shoulder, which could be from that same monster. We then get another shot of this planet, which we now know is likely not Skaro or Gallifrey. It seems to be either where those people are from that are all wearing the same clothes, or where the robots are from and where they've taken them to. We see some people in what seems to be the city on that planet being blasted in a similar effect to the Daleks, but this does look different enough to not be the Daleks. But who knows, maybe we will get a Daleks return in this and they're facing off against these robots as well, I don't know. We see the TARDIS flying through this big open area, which appears to be the arena from the Interstellar Song Contest, with the Doctor seemingly in the same location, floating around in space outside of the TARDIS. We see some shots of what seems to be from the finale, with the Doctor walking through some sort of force field type thing, and we see another shot from what seems to be episode 1, with the Doctor holding onto this big kind of glowing orb, with an effect that looks similar to the teleport that we see in the first trailer when the robots are taking Belinda Chandra away, and the Doctor promising to Belinda that he'll keep her safe. And here we see a better look at this big spider-like creature that we got earlier on in the trailer. Now, I've seen speculation that this could be the Anansi, which from doing some brief research, as I didn't know about this before, is apparently from Akan or Akan folklore, and the word Anansi does translate to spider, and is a trickster-like character that is one of the most important characters of West African and African American folklore. And the reason I said that this episode could take place in Ghana is, after my short bit of research on the Anansi, it does apparently originate from Ghana, so that's the reason why I feel like it could take place in Ghana, but I don't know too much in particular about this creature or this folklore character. But like I said, Inua Elums is also from Nigeria, so I don't know if this maybe has also some depictions in folklore in Nigeria as well, and it could take place there because then it means he's able to write about where he's from, but maybe he just wanted to write about African folklore in general. But this character is also associated with stories, wisdom, knowledge, and trickery. Obviously, there's been a lot of speculation that this season could have something to do with storytelling, and people think there's going to be maybe the god of stories involved in this season as part of the pantheon of gods. So that definitely could have something to do with this. I believe one of the characters earlier on in this trailer also tells the Doctor to tell a story, and we also see obviously the webs surrounding this big spider, which could have something to do with that as well, as maybe this creature kind of weaves stories in a web or something along those lines. But that's just me kind of spitballing some ideas based on somebody on Twitter pointing out that this could be the Anansi. So if you have any more ideas on what this could be about, let me know in the comments down below. So that's everything we know about Doctor Who Season 2 so far, at least in terms of what I've covered in previous videos. For example, we also know there's going to be some returning actors such as Michelle Greenidge and Susan Twist, and we also know of a couple new actors that are going to be in the season. Of course, the previously mentioned Christopher Chung and Alan Cumming playing Mr. Ring-a-Ding, but we also know that Rose Ayling-Ellis is going to be appearing in one of the episodes, as well as actor Freddie Fox, who appears to be playing a villain in what looks like the finale of this season. If you think I've missed anything, let me know in the comments down below, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing, and thanks for watching.